Good morning. This is the Blaine's World podcast where conversations are worth hearing and seeing. You can also watch each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn, and you can listen to us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. For more information, past episodes, visit www.blainesworld.net, which is kind of behind me. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield. I'm here coming to you from my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. And each week we share positive news and uplifting stories about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce Rebecca Weston, founder of the Camino Calls, and Tim Wesolowski, an avid traveler, for being my guest today. Guys, feel free to wave to all your fans and friends who are watching this. Okay. And talking about that's a perfect sort of way to talk about Rebecca because you're traveling right now. You're not even in the Asheville area. You're where?
That is correct. Right now I'm in Po, France.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us. Rebecca Weston is the founder of the Camino Calls, and has walked the Camino de Santiago, a network of ancient walking trails across Europe, many times herself. She helps folks, especially those 45 years and older, go from dreaming about the Camino to doing it by guiding them step by step through planning their own journey. And she also leads small group trips for those who want to begin alongside others. Tim is a retired public company CFO with decades of experience across media, manufacturing, and business services. He served as Chief Financial Officer at EW Scripps, where he helped lead major acquisitions, including the development and eventual sale of the company's podcasting business. He lives in Asheville, spending his time hiking in the mountains, traveling internationally, volunteering for several nonprofits, and doing other things to keep his mind and body active through mindfulness practices. And sent him, that's, I guess, how you met Rebecca initially, that you were just kind of minding your business and you found out about this tour and you took it. What happened, Tim?
Well, it's a little bit more complicated than that. Rebecca was offering an online course actually about the Camino, and it was probably over 8 weeks or so, once a week for an hour, and I joined that, and she went through what the Camino is, and there were probably a couple dozen of us in the class, and that's where I first became aware of Rebecca.
And so, Rebecca, in terms of your interest in the subject, as a child, I always ask, you grew up where?
In Poughkeepsie, Hyde Park, New York.
Okay, when growing up as a child in the Hyde Park, New York area, did you always know you wanted to be this hiker, traveler, explorer? Was that your goal?
Not at all. And in fact, most people that know me know that I don't like gyms. I don't like exercise. If you told me that I was going to walk 500 miles across Spain, I'd be like, yeah, probably never. But so no, I did not know this about myself.
So, what did you didn't go to school for this, obviously. What did you study, or what had been your interest?
I studied physical therapy, and then I got another degree in education.
Okay, and so you were doing that for a while, I guess. What got you interested in this?
I actually saw Shirley MacLaine interviewed in back in 99, 2000. She had done the Camino de Santiago, written a book about it. I had never heard of it in my life. And I knew she was famous, but I didn't know why. She was a little before my time. And it just sounded really cool. And so I filed it away of one of those, like, I'm going to do that someday. And then in 2011, I decided to give myself a year-long sabbatical from work. And so I did a bunch of things I had on my list, and one of those was to walk the Camino de Santiago for what I thought would be the only time, but then I got hooked.
Now, also, I guess around that time, or maybe thereafter, there was a movie about this, right? With one Sheen wasn't
Yes,
in it. And had you seen
absolutely.
that movie?
There's a movie called The Way,
Right.
and it actually came out in the fall of 2011 in the US. And I did my first Camino in May of 2012. So I had already planned on doing my Camino when the movie came out. And I was grateful that it did, because before that, people thought I was pretty much doing something like the Appalachian Trail. And
Right.
I was like, no, I'm going to sleep in a bed every night. I'm going to stop for coffee. It's not at all like the Appalachian Trail. So I was glad the movie came out so people could have a better idea of what it was.
And I'm glad you said that because, yeah, I can imagine the impression, including yours truly, would have this feeling that who wants to camp for 6 months or however long it takes. Tim, the same question. Had you seen the movie?
I did. I saw the movie in the theaters back in 2011. So that was the first time that the Camino just became came into my consciousness. And then somehow or another, I filed it away for 15 years or so, and popped back out in time to take the class that Rebecca offered.
And when you watched it, were you think to yourself, this is something I might want to try sometime?
Not in a million years, actually.
Well, then
It's a
talk,
very spiritual movie, actually. It's
right.
a fantastic film. I'd recommend everybody see it. And I remember at the time being real struck emotionally by it. But at the time, it wasn't like I need to do that, and that really only came in much later.
And so you mentioned a course, and Rebecca, I'll have you talk about this. You actually taught a course. What was the
Mhm.
course about?
The course was called Hiking the Camino de Santiago. And so I took people through, it's actually 6 classes. And I took people from the history of the Camino to how to choose a route, because there's a variety of routes throughout Spain, throughout much of Europe, actually. How to prepare for it, how to train for it, how to plan for it, how to get to your starting point, because even getting to the Camino can be a challenge. And so I kind of covered all of that stuff. And then I also let people know that I have this business. So if anybody, kind of felt a little overwhelmed planning it on their own, but didn't want to hire like a full on tour company, still kind of wanted to do it their own way, that I work with people to help them do all of this, figure out which route is for them, figure out when to go, figure out how they can train for it, et cetera, et cetera.
And so you offered the course through on your own, or who was it offered through?
Yeah, we offered it. It was offered through Ollie,
I
through
was
the
going to say that.
Osher
Yeah.
Lifetime Learning Institute in Asheville. Yep.
So that's perfect place for it, especially getting the people you'd reach in
Hmm.
there. Tim,
Hmm.
did you take part in that course?
It was, yep. I've taken several courses at Ollie, and this one was the one that I enjoyed the most, actually.
Okay. And so
Thanks, Tim.
was this the first? Well, that's a compliment to Rebecca, of course. Was this the first time, Rebecca, you taught the course at Ollie?
It was the first time I taught it at Ollie. Yes, I taught other courses at Ollie, not related to this topic. But yeah, it was my first time offering it. And it was online because at the time I was living in Spain.
Yeah. Oh, very cool. So you did it all online. Do you see yourself offering it again?
I could. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So talk about the course itself then. So online, they weren't walking, they weren't
Mhm.
hiking at the time. What was the name of the course?
It's called Hiking the Camino de Santiago.
Okay. And I was surprised you got a bunch of people who were interested in it.
Yeah. Yeah, we
How,
did. We've
how many people
we've
signed
done
up?
it. We've done it twice now. So Tim, I think, what did we have? Maybe 15 or so, maybe a little
Yeah,
more.
yeah.
And then the second time I did it, I think I had maybe 10 or 12. So there are definitely people who are interested in doing it. And I specifically said that in the course description. It wasn't a course to like learn about the Camino and, oh, this is kind of an interesting topic to know about. I specifically say in the course description, if you're interested in walking it, because my motto is to help people go from dreaming about the Camino to doing it. So I had most of the people in that class were, I think all of them were planning to do it at some point.
And if they didn't do it this first time, they'll do it sometime in the future, you think?
Exactly.
So Tim, in taking the course itself, um, so you had thought in the background of your mind that might be something you might want to do. Is this something you had to then get in shape for, or what did it entail?
Absolutely. I did have to get into physical shape. So I last year I went the last week of April. So it was Easter week actually. Easter was on the Sunday, and on the Monday is when I started my Camino. And I really started my physical training January 1st. And one thing I've learned is that there's nothing you can do in the gym. There's nothing you can do on the treadmill. You just have to get out and walk. Walk anywhere. Walk on the street. Walk on the sidewalk. Walk through your neighborhood. And I was walking probably 4 days a week. And then once a week, I would do a long walk. And I went on the Swamp Rabbit Trail, actually. It was the place where I generally did my long walk. That's a trail in South Carolina that was probably an old railroad, maybe, that's been paved. And it's quite a popular trail. And one day, I would start in one end and then walk 4 miles. And fortunately, there was a cafe right there, so I could get some sustenance, have a Coke, have a sandwich, and then walk 4 miles back. That was my 8 miles. And then when I wanted to extend it, I would just go a little farther on each end. And
That's
so I did the physical training really January, February, March, and half of April.
Now, is this something, Rebecca, you discuss with folks how to get in shape for this?
I do. And we talk about, and one of the things to know about the Camino is that the minimum that people walk is about 60 miles. But my first Camino, I walked over 500 miles. So there's a lot of variety in how far you can go. But so when I talk about training for it, one of the things I talk about is it depends on how long you're going to walk for. So Tim, for example, did one of those 60 plus mile routes. And I tell folks for that you should be able to do 5 or 6 miles per day for successive days. Because the big thing about the Camino that I tell people is, yeah, sure, you're going to walk 10 or 12 miles for, let's say, 5, 6, 7 days. And some people are like, oh, yeah, I've done a 12-mile hike before, no problem. And then I say, and what about the next day? Did you do it again? And then the day after that, and the day after that. So that's there's one thing to be able to get up to the point where you feel confident that you could do a walk of that length, but then to do it day after day, I like people to know how their feet are going to react. Are they getting blisters? Where are they getting blisters? Getting treatment? Are the shoes you're wearing working for you? Do you need to? I know you had one of your guests, Blaine, was from FootRx, I believe, that I saw. And so do you need to go to a specialist to, help you figure out what are the shoes you should be wearing? So yeah, we go through all of that as part of the course. And if people work with me one-on-one, it's definitely something that we cover.
So now, your preparation, how long did you have to prepare for this before you did the first walk?
So I did my first walk, started in mid-May, and I started preparing in January as well. And this was before your phone tracked any of this stuff. I started with an old-fashioned pedometer. And I just decided, okay, the first week, I'm just going to see how far I go every day. And I kept a little book by my nightstand. And every night I just wrote down how many steps I did. And I tell people every step counts because on the Camino, you literally wake up in the morning, maybe you have something to eat, and then you start walking and you have all day to walk. So I counted every step. And then each week I would try and increase by 1,000 steps. And by the time I left for my 500-mile journey, I could do 8 miles a day back to back.
Okay, and that was in a row without stopping?
No. Actually, I tell people you can take breaks, and I do. I enjoy, if it's a hill, I'm taking my sweet old time getting up it. I will stop for coffee. I'll stop and, chat with somebody else who stopped. So no, it's not a race. You don't have to do it from start to finish without stopping. So no, you can definitely take breaks.
And so what makes
During
this?
her class, she had mentioned that you will average 2 miles in an hour. And I
Mhm.
remember when she said that, I was thinking, you need to step it up, girl. That's not very fast.
That's
And it was exactly right. It was exactly what I did. And it's the same thing. You're sightseeing. It's beautiful where you are. I got an ice cream cone. I got a coffee. Was chatting people up. And it did work out to plan for about 2 miles in an hour.
okay, yeah, which doesn't sound very extensive or too much to do. But are you hinting at me, Tim, then for this podcast, we should take break a little bit, give everybody to get some ice cream or whatever, if we need to just get on the thing itself. Well, talk then about the actual walk then. So I don't know too much about it. That's why I'm asking you, Rebecca. Is this a religious thing, or how come people have the film talked a little bit about this? What's the religious tie into this?
So yeah, the Camino de Santiago was originally religious in its roots. So how it started was that Saint James, who was one of the apostles of Jesus, supposedly after Jesus's death, went to the Iberian Peninsula, which is Spain and Portugal, to spread the Gospels. There is not a lot of evidence that this is actually true, and pretty much from here on out, everything is greatly debated. But supposedly he went. Then he went back to Jerusalem, where he was the first apostle to be martyred. And then it said that his remains were brought back to the Iberian Peninsula, and 800 years later, a hermit found his remains. And a bishop at the time proclaimed, yes, that this was the remains of one of Jesus' apostles, and Catholics started flooding. Well, they didn't start flooding right away, but Catholics started walking towards where these remains were found, and eventually initially they built a small church, eventually they built a bigger cathedral, and it gained in popularity over the years depending on what was going on. So, for example, the Moors took over Spain in the 700s, and so at that point, they didn't get all the way north though. So at that point, the northern route for the Camino was more popular because you didn't have the danger of running into battles between the Christians and the Moors, for example. So yeah, it was definitely a religious pilgrimage. At that time. And in those years, if you were going to go on a religious pilgrimage and you were Catholic, you were either going to walk to Rome, to Jerusalem, or Santiago de Compostela. Now, over the years, it fell out of favor for various reasons, various wars and plagues and reasons that people couldn't get to it. And then the Spanish tourism authorities, et cetera, actually made a concerted effort to popularize it again and have done a phenomenal job. 500,000 people walked into Santiago de Compostela last year.
Okay, and they go, which is
And
interesting. They go anywhere from, you said 60 miles to 500 miles?
or more. There are people that walk
Mhm.
out their door in Germany, walk out their door in France, and spend months walking to Santiago de Compostela. And not everybody for religious reasons, but most people have some sort of reason that they have decided to do this. And Tim, if you would want to share, I know you had a reason that you wanted to do this,
Yeah,
correct?
you would. Yeah.
Yeah, so I had an intention that I said every morning, and then I repeated often during the day. And my intention was, I walk in solidarity with those who endure hardship in search of safety, dignity, and a better life. May each step deepen my empathy and remind me of our shared humanity.
Nice. So you said that every time you did this?
Every
Every
morning and various times throughout the day. Yeah, it was kind of a mantra type thing that it was going through my head.
I like it. Now, when you're in training, do you also say this? Like when you take walks?
No, on training, I was listening to podcasts, I was listening to music, I was keeping my brain occupied. And when I walked the Camino, I didn't listen to anything. I did have one minor hype song every morning that I went out with, but other than that, I had no audio, and I just had this going through my mind.
I was going to ask both of you that question, so I'll ask Rebecca first. So when you do this walk, or when you do it with you, is that the idea that people are supposed to be off electronic stuff and just meditating and concentrating, or can they listen to podcasts and radio and whatnot?
It's anyone's choice. One of the things that I love about the Camino de Santiago is that there are a variety of people doing it in a variety of ways. There's not a whole lot of rules. In my opinion, I think it's a great experience to do without technology in your ears all the time. Plenty of people will use apps to help them navigate, but it's most of the routes are quite well marked. So it's not necessary that you have technology. You'll definitely meet people who have decided to not use technology at all, or maybe during the day, they'll just text their family in the evening to say, "Hey, I got here." So it's definitely by choice.
But the good thing then, you're saying that by choice. So if somebody wants to do this walk and listen to this podcast, they can do so, so
Absolutely.
in terms of the future, they can do this. Well, when you are then walking itself, how many hours a day are you walking?
So it depends on how long you want to walk in a day. So as Tim and I were saying with our photo taking and coffee breaks, we average 2 miles an hour. I like to do 12 to 15 mile days. 12 is my ideal. So then that's about 6 hours from the moment I start walking to the moment I get to my destination town. So for example, if I start walking around 7:30, I'm going to get into town around 1:30. I specifically like to get into town for Spanish lunchtime because that's the big meal of the day. It's served between 1:30 and 3:30. I didn't know that on my first Camino. Tim had a different experience with meals, but yeah. So I'm usually done by 2, 3, 4 with my walk, and some people are not. Some people are like, I don't know what I'd do with myself if I got into a town that early, because some of these towns are super small. There might not be a lot to do, but I just love meeting other people. I can now speak Spanish, so I like meeting the locals. Sometimes there's some sights to see. Sometimes I just, relax. So I enjoy, you also, need to take a shower. You need to figure out how you're going to do some laundry, figure out where you're going to get some food. So there's different things you need to figure out. So I don't like to get into a town too late. Tim, do you want to share your experience as well?
Yeah, so I would say I was doing probably 8 miles in a day. Some days I had light days, and I think I had one that was like maybe 9, and then one that was 6. And so I would walk in the morning, get out about 9 o'clock probably, go till about noon, maybe stop once along the way at a cafe for coffee or whatever, um, and then have lunch around 1 o'clock. And then I generally got into the town by about at about 2:30, which is really not ideal because, as Rebecca said, some of these towns are tiny and they're basically literally everything is shut down in the afternoon. And so, uh, and something else that I hadn't quite planned on is this, like, what do you do after?
Right.
Well, the last thing I wanted to do was walk around and sightsee after walking all this time. It's sort of like a mailman going out for a walk after work. So I was generally staying in Airbnbs. So I had to like figure out what am I going to get for breakfast. I had to get a little bit of milk. I had to get some muffins or whatever and find a grocery store. So I was using that time until dinner to really sort of get provisions for the next day.
Now, did you speak before this any Spanish?
I have better than average tourist Spanish.
Okay.
So I can get around. I can get what I need. And the people that I was walking with, one of the reasons I didn't have any music in my ear was it's where I went was quite social. So I did the Portuguese route, which is straight north. Um, it starts at the Portugal-Spain border and absolutely goes straight north. It's the one where there's the least elevation change. And I was never really by myself where I couldn't see anybody ahead of me or behind me. It's very common to see a group of 3 or 4 people, 50 yards ahead. Somebody will come up from behind you, chat for a little bit. And, I've got kind of the whole rest of my life to listen to Dua Lipa and podcasts. So I really worked hard at connecting with people. And that was really something that I enjoyed the most.
Now, when you went on this trip, and I'll ask Rebecca this as well. So, was it just you, or did you go with somebody, or did you hook up with somebody and walk every day, or is it
I went by myself. And the thing for me is that I have to find somebody who has the interest in going,
right?
has the money to go, the time to go, the physicality to go, and I want to be with 24/7. Um, I found that's not a monstrously long list.
So,
Uh, so I went by myself and it was completely fine. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it.
and talk, Rebecca, if you would, then in terms of, I know you put together tours. So you
Hmm.
mentioned you just came off one, had like four other folks
Hmm.
in it. Were
Hmm.
they all
Hmm.
together every day, or how does that work?
No, actually, the when I lead a group on the Camino de Santiago, I do kind of a hybrid thing where I do 3 or 4 classes ahead of time, packing, training, all that kind of stuff. We meet in our where we're going to start, and I walk with folks for the first 3 days, and then the last 4 days they are on their own, and then I meet them in Santiago de Compostela. So my last group, for instance, two of the people knew me through my newsletter, through my business, and found, one of them told their daughter, hey, we should do this, and one of them told their sister-in-law, hey, we should do this. So that's where that group of 4 came from. I tell people, people can't just sign up for my trips. They have to have a phone call with me because I want to make sure that they're a right fit for what we're doing. And one of the things that I tell people is I can't walk with every single person in the group every moment of the day, and usually I'll walk with the slowest folks, so that, and I also teach people how to, how to find the trail markers, what you're looking for, what to do if you get lost, that kind of thing. So you may or may not be walking with people, depending on what time of year you go, when you go, and who you're going with.
Do some couples do this together?
They do. And I actually wrote a newsletter a while back called Don't Do the Camino de Santiago with Someone Just Because You Love Them.
Oh, really?
Yes, because I have met plenty of people on various, I've walked over 15 Caminos now, and I've met plenty of people who were like, "Oh yeah, my husband's like way up ahead because he likes to walk faster. We just meet in town every night." I've met best friends who are may or may not be friends by the end of the Camino because they're so different in how they're going to handle this. So it's definitely, as Tim says, his small group of people that met all his qualifications. It is something to consider because this is not just, oh, we're going to go to Paris and do sightseeing. I mean, this is a physical challenge. It's a mental challenge. It can be an emotional challenge. You really got to be sure you're happy with the person you're going to go with if you're going to go with someone.
Wait, Tim just gave you a great entry if you haven't done it yet for a blog entry, but that'd be a terrific article, article or blog entry. Is the Camino for you? And then I love Tim.
Mm-hmm.
I love there's something there, Tim, that I mentioned to Rebecca off the air about a book. I could see you doing a book on this. How to choose, how to do the Camino, and then find out. You have people apropos to that, Rebecca. You have people both ways. You have people who started out as friends and couples, and then because of this split. Or have you had any relationships develop as a result of the tour?
So I do know two friends that were in their 20s that I kept in touch with, and they are no longer friends. They broke up. They broke up their friendship on the Camino on about day 4 of a 30. They were doing a 30-day Camino, and there's tons of stories of people meeting and falling in love on the Camino de Santiago. Some people, on my first Camino, I was told, "Oh yes, this is the European divorcee trail." So people go there to find their next love. So there are plenty of people have stories of meeting their spouse or partner on the Camino de Santiago.
Because some of them I would think would be great for your blog, thing to do. And talk about that. You
Mm-hmm.
mentioned you have a newsletter. How often does that come out, and how do people get to it if they want to?
Yeah, so it's at inspiration.thecaminocalls.com and or you can just go to thecaminocalls.com and sign up there. I do it every Sunday, but as I've been traveling in Europe the last few weeks, I haven't put one out. But I cover various topics. So I cover how to get to your starting point. I've done training, I've done history, I've done choosing your route. So what there's so many questions that I get from clients, and that's usually what gives me, my ideas for what to write. So, for example, I'm helping a family right now, actually, parents and 3 of their teenagers are going to be walking the Camino de Santiago together in June. And so, as that client asks me questions, I'm feverishly jotting down like, oh, I should write about this. So I've covered a lot of material in the past. I've been doing that since a year ago, February. So there's plenty of information about the Camino on there.
And I love Tim's idea. We can make that an entry. Or can you have Tim be a guest blogger to talk about,
Hmm.
is the Camino that, I just love how you said it, Tim. Here are the 5 things you want to know. But it's good advice, not only for Camino, I guess good advice for anybody into a relationship that these are questions you want to think about before you do something with somebody.
And
Hmm.
things can go sideways on this. So I was in Spain when the power went out in the country. You remember that was on the U.S. news, so that was a very big deal. And I got into town at 2 o'clock, and there was no power, and the power didn't come on until 7 in the morning. And so I had couldn't use a cash machine. The restaurants weren't accepting credit cards, of course, so I didn't eat any dinner. I was laying there at night at 4 in the morning, not knowing when the power was going on. And so I'm sure that if there was somebody else that was there, that would have added some friction to the whole situation as well.
Rebecca, in terms of 2 things, both the course you teach every so often at Ollie or elsewhere, and also the walk itself, who would you say it's geared at? Who should be interested in this?
It's I wrote one of my first newsletters was is the Camino for everyone and is it for you? There are it's I mean I've met couples walking the Camino with their newborn because they were German and they got a maternity and paternity leave. So they said, let's go walk the Camino. I've met parents doing it with children. I've met college students. I've met retirees. I've met people who lost their job and were like, I need a reset. I'm going to walk this. People who have, lost someone significant in their life to disease or death or something, and wanted kind of a reset. I've met religious folks. I've met atheists. I've met everything in between. And I've met people that enjoy physical activity. I met people that never in a million years would have thought that they would be on the Camino de Santiago, which was me on my first Camino. So yeah, I wouldn't say, Blaine, that it's any one person in particular. When you go on the Camino, one of the things that I love most about it is the variety of people that you will meet from hundreds of countries, from different walks of life, different ages, different backgrounds. It's really an incredible place.
There are people whose lives have been changed as a result of this. I'm thinking just in terms of physical fitness, that getting ready for this over the period of time. Have you seen that?
I have, yeah. Lots of people change their lives, leave jobs, leave relationships, start new relationships, change their idea of what they want in life, what they want for their future, how they want to be with their children, with their grandchildren. Yeah, I've heard all kinds of stories, both on the Camino and after the Camino.
If folks want to find out more about either your blog or the next trip, and talk about that, the next trip is coming. You're going to be planning another trip?
Yeah, I'm planning two more trips for the fall, and we will be doing. I'm solidifying now which routes, but we'll be doing a week-long trip similar to what I mentioned before. I'll be with the folks for the first few days, giving them the tools and skills that they need to then continue on their own, and then I meet them in Santiago, and help them, get their official I did it certificate and all those kinds of things. So I don't have those published yet, but I do have in every one of my newsletters at the bottom, it says, if you want to be one of the first ones to hear about the trip, click here. And so I've got people on that list that I will send out that information to first when I publish those two trips for the fall.
And I guess the nice thing about working with you or the trip itself is you take
Yeah.
care of, I guess, most of the details from soup to nuts. In other words, if I went on it, I don't have to worry about where I'm going to stay or how to get to here and there.
Yeah, so I work with clients depending on what their needs are. So one of the first things I do is talk to people about what do they want to make sure that they have, what's their vision by the time they're done working with me. Some people just want to set up the accommodations and the luggage transfer service because you don't have to carry a backpack on the Camino de Santiago. There are plenty of companies that will bring your luggage to the next step. Some people want more details with planning. They want help figuring out their flights, how to get from where they land to their Camino starting point. So yeah, the and different accommodation types. A lot of people, most of the folks I work with are not staying in hostels. And that's one of the reasons I started my business is because so much of the information out there about the Camino de Santiago is 20 or 30 somethings who have walked and carried backpacks and stayed in hostels. And that's not the only way to do the Camino de Santiago. And that's not the way Tim did it. That's not the way the majority of my clients do it. They stay in private rooms, private bathrooms,
Right.
have their luggage sent for them. I tell people, walking the Camino de Santiago is hard enough. If you want to make it more challenging, go for it. But if you don't, there are ways around that. So yeah, and all of that is available at thecaminocalls.com. All of that information about what I offer folks.
And just curious, the typical age range. So you just did one tour, you're going to be two upcoming. What are the age
Mm-hmm.
range of folks who sign up for this?
So for the tours, again, I work with people who are 45 and over in general. So this time I did have a woman in her 40s and her mother who was in her 70s. And actually the other two women were both in their 70s as well.
Okay, so the oldest anybody's done this, do you know?
I think she was 72, 3, something like that. My father does a Camino every year. He's 78.
Oh, really?
I've yeah, 78 and I met an 89-year-old guy walking the Camino de Santiago, so age is not necessarily a factor.
And the in terms of the age range, have you done this? You said you did it with your dad. Now, did you do it actually with your dad? Did he walk it with you?
I do. Yeah, we do about a week each year.
Okay, and you still speak to each other?
We do. We do. Yeah.
Okay.
I tell my mother it's my birthday and Christmas gift to my mother that she gets to be on her own for a whole week
Oh,
without my father.
oh, so she doesn't want to go on this, or she hasn't gone on
Oh, she had zero interest in doing the Camino. She actually did come with us on one of our Caminos. I set it up such that every morning I had a taxi that would come and pick her up around 10 in the morning or so, bring
Great.
her to our next town. And she knew the accommodation we were staying in. And then by the time we arrived, she was already in the town, reading her book, relaxing, doing whatever. So she's been on the Camino, but has not walked it.
And Tim, I'll guess you as a last kind of question here. In terms of, so you went on this one um, walking tour of the Camino. Do you see yourself doing this again or in the future?
Yeah, I do. For me, one of the reasons that I went was I've always wanted to do something big physically in my life. And, then all of a sudden you have a career and you have a couple kids, and the next thing you know, you're 67, and that big thing of cycling across the country is probably not going to happen. And so that's one of the reasons I wanted to do it. And it was important to me that I was successful. So I did this. It was 100 kilometers. It was successful. I had a great time. I did not want to start out at 500 miles, right? So I've checked the Camino box. I've checked that box. I don't feel like I need to go, the week after I did it. And I've actually have a couple of friends who've been asking questions, and I'm kind of thinking that maybe next year will be something I'd be interested in doing again.
And what's interesting, what you just said, is the fact you said interested in doing it again. You do that, or would you then choose to travel some other country or just completely different experience?
I'm doing those as well. So
Okay.
I've spent several months in Australia over the last couple of years. I'm actually going to Sevilla, Spain, mid-June to mid-July this year. So, and those are not hiking trips, by the way. Those are living overseas trips.
But I was going to ask you, but do you, at any time because of this now, do you try to hike every day or every so often? Do you try to do walking?
Yeah, I stay active here, right? So I'm fortunate to live in Asheville, and the Pisgah National Forest is a 15-minute drive away. So I hike in there a couple times a week and go to the Swamp Rabbit Trail. So this is a great place to continue hiking.
And Rebecca, the same question, I may have asked you off the air, but so you've done these Camino tours. Do you see yourself doing tours anywhere else?
No, not at this point. There are so many Camino
Other than
routes that I've done and that I haven't done that I want to do. I'm not done with the Camino yet, and
that?
it's been in my blood since 2012 when I did my first one, and it has taken hold and hasn't let go. So I don't see any stopping in the future.
Okay, well, anyway, I'd like to thank you for being my guest edition of Blaine's World Show. Also, Tim, I appreciate you joining us. Thank my producer, Cappy Tassetti. And one last time, Rebecca, if folks want to find out more about this, the best bet is
To go to thecaminocalls.com.
okay, and certainly a place to find you. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh my.